Hi, Steve here from the End Time Prophecy e-course channel and the End Time Prophecy e-course Facebook page. For those of you who are familiar with my teachings on End Time Prophecy, you will recognize that some of the views I hold on End Time Prophecy in general and Revelation 13 in particular are not in precise agreement with the teachings of a Doug Batchelor or a Greg Sarida of the Bible Flock Box YouTube channel. I single out these two personalities for special mention because apart from watching their videos on a regular basis, their teachings accurately represent the doctrinal position of Adventism and Bible prophecy. So I think I can safely use their prophecy presentation as a model of where the Adventists stand on Bible prophecy today. And being an Adventist myself, much of what these guys teach, I'm in total agreement with. But there are also important areas of disagreement. Before I get to the points of disagreements, I just want to make it clear that the purpose of this video is not to start a new prophecy controversy. Sometimes controversy can be a good thing, but too often it creates more confusion than it brings enlightenment. The true intent of this video is to bring what I consider to be an important matter to the attention of every diligent, conscientious, independent thinking prophecy student for our consideration. And I don't mind getting your feedback in the comment section, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on my Facebook page. Now let me get to the point. As a diligent layman prophecy student who does a lot of reading and research, I am compelled to review some of what I used to believe concerning the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation, and I am going to give you a few examples of what I am talking about. In my research of symbolic prophecies, I have discovered a fundamental oversight that just about every prophecy student is making, and it is creating some amount of inconsistencies in our end-time analysis of the book of Revelation. And you know what that oversight is? The failure to accept the interpretation of prophecy symbols just as they are given in the scriptures. In other words, when the Bible gives us an interpretation of a symbol, we do not accept it as the precise solution to the prophecy. For instance, the interpretation of the four beasts in Daniel 7 is given to us in verse 17 as follows. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. Clearly, the interpretation is pointing us to the rise of four literal kings. This conclusion can hardly be denied if we are to accept the argument that an interpretation supplies the literal equivalent of a symbol. However, most prophecy students do not accept this interpretation as it is precisely stated. They opted instead to paraphrase it to mean the four beasts are four nations, an interpretation the Bible did not give. The justification for this is found in verse 23, where it is said, "The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth." In their collective wisdom, kingdom is referring to nation. Now, it would be unreasonable for us to think that verse 23 is designed to contradict or change what verse 17 is saying. Yet it would be tantamount to doing just that if we use our opinion of what verse 23 is saying to trump what is already clear in verse 17. I hope you grasp what I'm trying to say here. It's like wanting to know the meaning of the four beasts of Daniel 7, and when the Bible gives the meaning, you then want to find out what's the meaning of the meaning. What am I saying here? Am I suggesting that the first kingdom is not Babylon, and the second not Medo-Persia, and the third not Greece, and the fourth not Rome? Most certainly not. The first kingdom is indeed a Babylonian kingdom. But why is it a Babylonian kingdom? Because the kingdom was set up by the king of Babylon. And the same thing applies to the other three kingdoms. But the fact remains that the meaning given for the four beasts are four kings. So while it is still valid to treat them as a reference to Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, we must bear in mind that this is not a precise interpretation, but a logical, inevitable deduction. And that's an important distinction that every prophecy student needs to be aware of. Thus, the biblical interpretation for the four beasts of Daniel 7 is as follows. The first beast represents the king of Babylon. The second beast represents the king of Medo-Persia. The third is a symbol of the king of Greece, and the fourth symbolizes the king of Rome. Clearly, this presents a different picture from what the traditional interpretation suggests. To some, this may appear to be a peripheral matter, but it is not. Sometimes the most glaring falsehoods stem from the acceptance of what is perceived to be small errors. And the problem with how we treat Daniel 7 is not only in the fact that the interpretation adopted is not in precise harmony with the clear instruction in Daniel 7 and verse 17, but it is also used as a template by which we interpret other prophecies. I guess that's where we get the rule which states, a beast in prophecy represents a kingdom or nation, which is to suggest, everywhere we see a beast symbol in Bible prophecy, it means nation. To use this rule as a template for every symbolic prophecy is to create another set of problems which will become more apparent when we apply this rule to the symbols in the book of Revelation. First of all, this template is not even necessary, and here's the reason why. Each symbolic prophecy from Daniel to Revelation has its own set of interpretations. When we examine each prophecy, we can see that clearly. In the prophecy of Daniel 8, the ram with 2 horns has an interpretation. The he-goat with the great horn also has its interpretation. And the 4 horns that came up afterwards has their own interpretation. When we look at Revelation 12, the dragon has its own interpretation, and the woman is also interpreted. In Revelation 13, there is an interpretation for the beast, an interpretation for the heads and horns of the beast, and an interpretation for the lamb-horned beast. In Revelation 17, the great whore has her own interpretation, and the waters where the great whore sits has an interpretation as well. This is by no means an exhaustive list. I just went through the major prophecy symbols to demonstrate that we do not need a template to solve these prophecies. Where an interpretation of a prophecy is already available, a template is not needed. In other words, the concept that a beast in prophecy represents a nation should not be used to determine what interpretation we give for the beast of Revelation 13, for instance, because the interpretation is already supplied in chapter 17. The point I'm trying to make is, in our study of symbolic prophecies, we need to pay more attention to the interpretation the Bible gives us and apply it as a literal equivalent of the symbol. I cannot speak for others, but I can testify that this method makes a world of difference in my understanding of prophecy, and I believe it can make a positive difference in yours as well. It is largely upon this discovery, if I may call it that I was inspired to share it with others. I'm going to stop here, but I want you to stay tuned for part 2 of this video. I think part 2 is going to really drive home beyond a shadow of a doubt that we need to re-examine and rethink some of our long-cherished beliefs on end-time events. Thanks for watching. This is Steve Sterling signing out.